Hi, this video today is to give you ideas of how these sentences could be combined, and also to show you what happens with commas when you combine sentences, and how not to create run-on sentences. I went through the discussion board and read it today. Many of you are creating run-on sentences instead of combining them. So let's start with the first set. Jackie Robinson became the first black man to play in Major League Baseball. This happened in 1947. Well, this refers to the whole idea up here. We're repeating this happened. So if we get rid of this happened, all we have left is in 1947. And I'm going to start with that. In 1947, and then we put a comma, because introductory phrases take a comma. They always do, no matter what your introductory phrase is, okay? So if you put something before the main sentence, which is, here's the main sentence, so what we have is our sentence, Jackie, in 1947, comma, Jackie Robinson became the first black man to play Major League Baseball. And you can't see the period, but I put it there. Okay, now some of you, what you did, whoops, what some of you did was, let me see what's wrong with this here. You put Jackie Robinson and I did that twice, okay. And then you just put a comma. This happened in 1947. Well, what you've done there is you have made what we call a run-on sentence. You have, excuse me, you have taken one sentence and added it to another with a comma. That's making this a run-on, and we don't want that to happen. You could fix this by putting a semicolon, but again, remember what I said earlier. This happened refers to this whole sentence, so why not get rid of it? And this time I'm putting it in 1947 at the end of the sentence, and because it's at the end, I'm not going to need the comma. If I put it first, I will. If I put it in the end, I won't. So remember that the first comma thing we're talking about is you need a comma before an introductory phrase. And in this case, oops, it's in 1947. Okay. Okay, let's look at the next sentence. Robinson faced severe racial prejudice. The prejudice was from fans, and the prejudice was from players. This happened during the first season. In this case, this happened is referring to all this above. So I can take during that first season and make it again an introductory phrase. And we need the comma. Remember, you need a comma before an introductory phrase. And now we can combine those first three sentences. Robinson faced severe racial prejudice. That's the key idea, main idea. Let's see if I can spell. And now remember, we're repeating prejudiced here from prejudiced here. So we can get rid of the prejudice was from fans. And notice the prejudice again is from players. So we have taken one, two, three, four sentences and made it one. Now, you're probably saying, oh, well, you've added two things together here, fans and players. If you only add two things together, two nouns, two verbs, and there are other things, does not need a comma. Now, if there had been three things, fans, players, and managers, for example, and this isn't a sentence in there, but if it had been from fans, players, and managers, then I need commas. Because when you add things together, you need commas. Okay? Let's go to the next one. I'm going to have to try to move this again. I couldn't find a better way to do this, and I apologize. I played with this a while and tried to figure it out. Okay. And he received threatening letters, and he kept playing, though. Well, I'm going to add some words to this, and instead of and, I'm going to go, even though he received several threatening letters, he kept playing. And what I did is, see the though is here, so I made it an even though, and I made a long introductory, what we call instead of a phrase, a clause. And it's not a clause that can stand by itself, because even though makes it dependent. So, dependent clauses at the beginning of a sentence need a comma. You cannot just think about it as anything that becomes before the main sentence is going to need a comma. Anything that comes before it. You don't need to memorize dependent clauses and introductory phrases. Just remember anything before it, okay? But what I did was I made a dependent clause, and we'll talk more about that later. Okay, let's go. Let's hurry through this because I'm taking too much time. Next one. He played for the first base for the Brooklyn Dodgers. He had never been a first baseman before. I'm going to make this second one stay there, and I'm going to start with the first one. He played first base for the Brooklyn Dodgers. They eventually became the LA Dodgers. And I'm going to use a word to make the second part dependent. He had never been I could just say one. One refers back to first base. Oh, that should have been baseman. Okay. So even though I'm here, I created a dependent clause, and I put it at the end, and I don't need a comma. If I had said, although he had never played first base he did for the Brooklyn Dodgers. So again, I put this at the beginning, then I need the comma, and then I just said he did for the Brooklyn Dodgers because I don't need to repeat first base. The idea of sentence combining is to get rid of extra words, not add the sentences together with a comma or even add the sentences together with a semicolon. What you want to look for is what you want to get rid of, and this next one will show us that. He had 29. He had stolen 29 bases, and he had batted .29 or 297. You don't say point in baseball. Jeez. And he had won the first ever Rookie of the Year award. All this happened by the end of the season. Well, all this happened refers to these again, remember? How we did that up in these other ones? Okay, so I'm going to say by the end of the season. And remember, introductory, what do I do? Do I hear you out there saying comma? Okay, that was silly. Okay, he had stolen 29 bases, batted, notice I'm putting things in, three things together, batted .297, and won the first Rookie of the Year award. So I added things together here. Come on, come on. Why won't you get bigger? That's not what I wanted. Okay. I'm adding these three things together. Stolen bases, his batting, and that he won the first Rookie of the Year. I'm adding together verbs. And it's much like when I added two things together up here. In this case, I'm adding three things together, and that's when I need the commas. If you add two of anything together with an and, you do not need a comma, okay? So, the next one you don't need to work, that's just what they put in there. So the last one is, but more important, he helped to break the barrier that had kept black athletes out of sports. Well, this is kind of a little complicated one. It should be more importantly. I'm sorry, don't worry if you put that. It's just one of my pet peeves. He helped to break the barriers that had kept black athletes out of professional sports. In this case, I'm creating what they call a relative clause, and I'm talking about adding this to this. We'll talk more about that next week. But right now, what I took you through was how to add things together without creating run-on sentences, and two important comma rules. You need a comma before an introductory phrase, and introductory dependent clauses. You don't want to put a period if you have that. You're going to have a problem. And if you add things together, add nouns, verbs, whatever, you don't need a comma. If it's two, more than two needs a comma. So I would watch this a couple times until you understand the concepts that I am trying to teach you. And then if you have any questions about this, put it in raise your hand, and we can have a discussion, not just you and me answering you, but other people chiming in if they know the answer. Thanks for listening. If you did listen to the end, send me an email saying you watched to the end, and make sure you put English 107 in the subject line, and tell me what you learned or what you're still confused about, or what if you have a question. Really, truly, thanks for listening. I think it will benefit you.